Commander Alan Baker stood at the viewport of the transport ship, watching as Harmony Station grew larger against the backdrop of stars. The massive ring-shaped structure rotated slowly, creating artificial gravity for the thousands of beings inside. After decades of remote communications and careful negotiations, humanity was finally meeting the Galactic Concord face to face. "Nervous?" asked Susan Gray, stepping beside him. Her diplomatic uniform was pressed to perfection, the blue and gold of Earth's united government gleaming under the lights. Alan straightened his own uniform. "Not nervous, curious. 37 species in one room, and we're the new kids." Susan smiled. "New kids with nuclear weapons and faster-than-light travel. They wouldn't have invited us if they didn't think we were ready." The ship's speaker crackled. "To life. Earth delegation, prepare for docking procedures. Welcome packet has been transmitted to your devices." Dr. Frank Martinez joined them at the viewport, tablet in hand. The xenobiologist had spent the 6-month journey studying everything known about the Concord species. "Did you see the welcome instructions? There are 17 different greeting customs listed, and 3 species we shouldn't make direct eye contact with." Alan nodded. "I memorized them all. The Vryn prefer telepathic greetings but will accept a shallow bow. The Makari exchange technical data packets. The Drax perform dominance displays that we should simply observe without response." "Show off," Susan said with a grin. The ship shuddered, slightly as docking clamps engaged. A soft hiss indicated the airlocks were aligning. Alan took a deep breath. "Here we go. Humanity's big moment." The airlock doors slid open to reveal a reception area larger than a football field. Beings of various shapes, sizes, and colors stood in a loose semicircle. Some floated in containment fields. Others stood on platforms to adjust their height. The air smelled of something like cinnamon and ozone. A tall, slender being with iridescent skin stepped forward. Its translator badge pulsed with light as it spoke. "Welcome, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Krill of the Makari, current chair of the Concord Welcome Committee. We are pleased to officially receive your species." Alan stepped forward and bowed exactly 15 degrees, as instructed. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we are honored to be received. I am Commander Alan Baker. With me are diplomat Susan Gray and Dr. Frank Martinez." As they moved through the formal introductions, Alan noticed something odd. Many of the aliens seemed to be standing farther back than protocol suggested. The Vryn delegate, a purple-skinned being with large, compound eyes, visibly flinched when Alan extended his hand in greeting. The Drax representative, a hulking reptilian creature with armored plates along its spine, studied the humans with what Alan recognized as military assessment. Its translator produced a deep, rumbling voice. "Your species is smaller than reports indicated, yet you survived your planet's predator cycles. Interesting." "We're full of surprises," Susan replied smoothly. They were shown to their quarters, spacious rooms with furniture hastily adapted for human physiology. Alan's security training noted that their section of the station was isolated from the others, with extra monitoring systems thinly disguised as environmental controls. After a brief rest period, they were escorted to the Grand Council chamber for the welcome ceremony. The room was a marvel of alien architecture, with a ceiling that seemed to show the actual stars beyond the station, and a floor that adjusted to each species' preferred walking surface. Representatives from all 37 Concord species sat in a tiered arrangement. The most powerful, the Vryn, Makari, and Drax, occupied the highest tier. Earth's delegation was assigned seats near the bottom, alongside other emerging species. A small, gecko-like alien scurried up to them before they took their seats. "Humans! So exciting!" it chittered, its translator struggling to keep up with its rapid speech. "I am Pick, assistant to the archivist delegation. May I scan you for historical records?" Frank stepped forward eagerly. "Of course, I'd be happy to provide biological samples as well if—" "No," Pick said, backing away quickly. "No samples. Scan only. From distance. Safe distance." Alan frowned. That was the 3rd time someone had reacted strangely. He noted it mentally and smiled at the nervous alien. "Just a scan is fine." The ceremony began with speeches from the senior delegates, The Makari spoke of technological exchange. The Vryn discussed cultural harmony. The Drax mentioned defense pacts and territorial boundaries with unusual emphasis. When it was Earth's turn, Susan delivered humanity's prepared address. She spoke of cooperation, mutual growth, and peaceful exploration. The chamber was silent when she finished, until a low murmur spread through the alien delegates. "Did I say something wrong?" Susan whispered to Alan. "I don't think so," he replied. "But something's definitely off." That evening, they attended a formal dinner. The food was specially prepared to be compatible with human biology. Alan noticed the security scanners they passed through were more thorough for them than for other delegates. The guards, mostly Drax with some Makari, watched them constantly. As they were sampling alien cuisine, most of which tasted like variations of seaweed, an elderly being approached their table. Its skin was paper-thin, showing a network of glowing veins beneath. "I am Trillax of the Archivists," it said in a whispery voice. "We record the histories of all conquered species. Your inclusion is a significant event." "We're honored," Frank replied. "Your archives must be fascinating." Trillax's large eyes blinked slowly. "Indeed, we have previous records of your kind." Alan set down his drink. "Previous records? This is humanity's first contact with the conquered." "The conquered's first official contact with humanity," Trillax corrected. "There have been observations for many centuries." Susan leaned forward. "You've been watching us? Why weren't we told?" Trillax seemed uncomfortable. "Standard protocol for emerging species, particularly those with unique characteristics." "What characteristics?" Alan asked. Before Trillax could answer, a Vryn delegate approached and touched the archivist's shoulder. The elderly alien stiffened. "Enjoy your evening, humans. We will speak again." It shuffled away quickly. Later, as they returned to their quarters, Alan gathered Susan and Frank in his room, activated a signal jammer he'd smuggled in his personal items, and spoke quietly. "Something isn't right. They're treating us like we're dangerous." Susan nodded. "I noticed. The Vryn won't make eye contact. The security is excessive." "And did you see how the Drax keep their weapons visible when they're near us?" Frank added. "It's almost like they're trying to intimidate us." Alan looked out at the stars beyond their window. "We're missing something important." The archivist mentioned previous observations of humans, and something about unique characteristics. "Maybe they know something about us that we don't know ourselves," Susan suggested. Alan's eyes narrowed. "Tomorrow, let's find out what that is." The second day of negotiations brought more strange behavior from the alien delegates. Alan watched carefully as the representatives from various species kept unusual distance from the humans. During a midday break, he nodded to Susan and Frank, signaling their plan to split up and gather information. Lara Wells, a junior member of the human delegation, wasn't part of their inner circle. The young communications specialist wandered through the less crowded areas of Harmony Station, fascinated by the alien architecture. Her curiosity led her down a corridor that wasn't on the visitor maps provided to the humans. The hallway opened into a small garden area where strange blue plants pulsed with gentle light. Lara paused to admire them when voices from the other side caught her attention. She recognized the distinctive vibrating tone of the Vryn translator devices. "Unpredictable powder kegs," one voice said. "The data is clear. Their response to threats is unlike anything in the Conquered." "The Berserkers," another voice replied. "That's what the ancient texts called them." Lara frowned. "Berserkers?" She stepped closer to listen. The Council must limit their expansion. One incident, one misunderstanding, and we could have a disaster. Their delegate Baker shows all the signs. His combat record on their planet indicates multiple Berserker episodes. Lara's foot knocked against a decorative stone. The voices stopped immediately. She turned to leave but found herself facing a Vryn delegate, its purple skin darkening with emotion. "You should not be here, human," it said coldly. "I'm sorry," Lara replied. "I was just exploring and got lost." "A likely story," the Vryn said. Security will escort you back to your assigned areas. Before the Vryn could call for guards, a thin, elderly alien stepped into view. Lara recognized the archivist from the welcome dinner. I will handle this, Zexalor, Trillax said calmly. The human meant no harm. The Vryn delegate's skin pulsed with dark patches, but it nodded stiffly and left. Trillax turned to Lara. You heard things not meant for human ears, the archivist said. They called us berserkers, Lara said. What does that mean? Trillax was quiet for a long moment. Walk with me, human Wells. There are things you should understand. Meanwhile, Alan had made his way to the station's security center. His military rank granted him limited access to observe the station's defenses, though he noticed the Drax guards watching his every move. Impressive systems, Alan said to the Drax security chief, a massive being named Gorn. Necessary, Gorn replied. Many species together means many potential conflicts. Alan nodded toward a display showing the human quarters. Are all delegation areas monitored this closely? Gorn's scaled face remained expressionless. Some require more attention than others. Because you think we're dangerous, Alan said directly. The Drax turned its full attention to Alan. All species are dangerous in their way, human Baker. Yours is simply unpredictable. Across the station, Susan was attending a cultural exchange with representatives from 12 species. The discussion turned to physiological responses to threats. The Makari release electromagnetic pulses when threatened, a blue crystalline being explained. The Gyrex secrete toxic compounds. The Vryn can cloud minds with telepathic static. And humans? Susan asked. What do you know about our threat responses? The room grew uncomfortably quiet. The blue crystalline being's lights dimmed slightly. Your species is still being studied, it said finally. Frank had better luck in the medical exchange. He'd been sharing information about human biology with a group of alien scientists who seemed fascinated by the human endocrine system. Your adrenaline response is remarkable, said a Makari scientist. No other species combines fear suppression with enhanced strength so efficiently. Frank smiled. It's just basic fight-or-flight response. But your fight mode, the scientist pressed. It allows injuries to be ignored, pain to be suppressed. Imagine a wounded predator that doesn't realize it should stop fighting. Frank frowned. I suppose that's one way to look at it. In the garden area, Trillax led Lara to a private alcove. The archivist's ancient eyes studied her carefully. What I tell you is not secret information, but context that was to be shared gradually with your species, Trillax began. Humans have been observed by various Concord species for centuries. Why? Lara asked. To determine when you would be ready for contact, Trillax replied. Your species has something unique, a physiological response to danger that no other known species possesses to the same degree. The berserker state, Lara said. Trillax nodded. When threatened, humans can enter a state where pain is ignored, strength increases beyond normal limits, and reason is replaced by pure survival instinct. That's just adrenaline, Lara protested. It's basic biology. For you, perhaps, Trillax said. For the rest of the galaxy, it is terrifying. Most sentient species evolved away from such responses, developing technology or specialized defenses instead. The archivist's voice dropped lower. Imagine facing an opponent who, despite severe injuries, continues fighting with increasing ferocity rather than retreating. An opponent who grows stronger the more desperate the situation becomes. Lara thought about human history, about last stands and desperate battles. But it's not like we turn into monsters. From certain perspectives you do, Trillax said gently. The conquered has been waiting until humans matured enough to not immediately resort to violence. That's not fair, Lara said. We're peaceful. We want to join the galactic community. I believe you, Trillax replied. But remember this warning. When humans go berserk, even our oldest and most powerful species cannot guarantee survival. This is why you are approached with caution. That evening, the human delegation gathered in Alan's quarters to share what they had learned. Alan activated his signal jammer again. "They're afraid of us," Susan said. "Something about our response to threats." "Adrenaline," Frank confirmed. "The way humans can push through pain and ignore injuries in combat situations." Lara shared her conversation with the archivist. Trillax called it the Berserker state and said it terrifies them. Alan paced the room. "So they've been watching humanity, waiting for us to become civilized enough before making contact." "It explains the extra security," Susan said. "The distance they keep, they're treating us like unpredictable animals." "Dangerous animals," Alan corrected. "The Vryn think I'm especially prone to this berserker state because of my combat record." Frank looked thoughtful. "From an evolutionary standpoint, our ability to ignore pain and access hysterical strength is unusual. Most animals retreat when injured." "So what do we do with this information?" Lara asked. Alan stopped pacing. "We prove them wrong. We show them that humans can be diplomatic, rational, and peaceful, no matter what biological quirks we might have." "And if we can't?" Susan asked quietly. Before Alan could answer, the station's alarm system erupted into a cacophony of sounds. The lights dimmed to emergency levels. "What's happening?" Lara asked, her eyes wide. The room's communication panel lit up. Ambassador Krill's face appeared, the Makari's skin pulsing with agitation. "Commander Baker," the alien said urgently. "The station is under attack. Purist faction ships have boarded in multiple sections. They've taken hostages in the central chamber." "Purists?" Alan asked sharply. "Extremists who believe primitive species, like humans, should be subjugated, not welcomed," Krill explained. "Please remain in your quarters for your safety." The communication ended. Alan looked at his team, his expression hardening. "Like hell we will," he said. Alan moved quickly to a hidden compartment in his luggage. He pulled out a compact stunner, not lethal but enough to incapacitate most species. Earth's security team had insisted on emergency measures, despite the peaceful nature of the mission. "We need to find out who was taken hostage," Alan said. "Susan, you were at the cultural exchange in the central chamber. Who would be there now?" Susan's face paled. "The evening reception. At least 20 delegates, including representatives from all major species." "I'm going," Alan said firmly. "Frank, you're with me. Susan and Lara, stay here and try to establish communication with Earth. We need to let them know what's happening." "You can't just charge in there," Susan protested. "The ambassador said to stay put." "They're expecting us to hide," Alan replied. "That gives us an advantage." Alan and Frank slipped out of their quarters. The hallways were in emergency lighting mode, with warning signals flashing silently on the walls. They moved carefully, avoiding the main corridors. "Do you actually have a plan?" Frank whispered as they ducked into a maintenance tunnel. "Find allies, assess the situation, rescue the hostages," Alan said. "Basic crisis response." They emerged near the security center and found chaos. Several Drax guards lay wounded while others coordinated a response. Gorn, the security chief, looked up as the humans entered. "You should be in your quarters," Gorn growled. "We're here to help," Alan said. "What's the situation?" Gorn stared at them for a long moment, then seemed to make a decision. "Purist strike team, 15 members. They've sealed the central chamber and taken 23 delegates hostage. Life support is damaged in sections 3 and 5. "Casualties?" Frank asked. 4 dead, 11 wounded, Gorn replied. "Communication with Earth is blocked." Alan studied the security monitors. "What's your plan?" "Negotiation," Gorn said. "The Purists want recognition and changes to conquered expansion policies." "And if negotiation fails?" Alan pressed. Gorn's scaled. Face remained impassive. "We wait for reinforcements from the nearby Concord outpost." "How long?" 17 hours. Alan shook his head. "The hostages might not have that long. We need to act now." "We?" Gorn asked, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. "Your species has no combat experience in space stations." "But we do have experience with hostage situations," Alan countered. "Let me see the station schematics." Reluctantly, Gorn displayed the layout of the central chamber and surrounding areas. Alan studied it carefully. There's a maintenance access here, he pointed. Two-person team could enter undetected. Create a distraction for your main force to breach the primary doors. Gorn looked skeptical. The purists have advanced weapons. Your species' fragile biology would not survive direct confrontation. We're tougher than we look, Frank said quietly. After further discussion, Gorn agreed to a modified version of Alan's plan. A joint team would attempt to enter through the maintenance access. Alan, Frank, a Drax warrior named Krell, and a Vryn telepath who could sense the positions of hostages through walls. As they prepared, Alan noticed the aliens kept their distance, especially the Vryn telepath Zexler, the same one who had confronted Lara earlier. Your mind is turbulent, Zexler said, full of violent potential. Alan checked his stunner. I'm focused on saving lives. Even purest lives? Zexler asked. If possible, Alan replied. But the hostages come first. They move through the maintenance tunnels in silence. The Vryn led the way, its telepathic abilities guiding them. When they reached the access point to the central chamber, Zexler paused. 23 hostages alive, Zexler whispered. 12 purists inside. They have molecular disruptors. Fatal? Frank asked. Extremely, Krell the Drax warrior answered. One shot liquefies organic tissue. Alan's face hardened. Positions? Zexler described the layout. 2 purists guarded the main entrance. Others were spread throughout the chamber. The hostages were gathered in the center, surrounded by their captors. We need a distraction, Alan said. Something to draw their attention away from the hostages. They formed a plan. Krell would create a diversion at the far end of the chamber while Alan and Frank moved to protect the hostages. Zexler would attempt to telepathically calm the hostages to prevent panic. On my signal, Alan said. 3, 2, 1. The maintenance panel slid open. The team slipped inside as Krell moved toward his position. Frank followed Alan closely, staying in the shadows of the chamber's decorative columns. They were halfway to the hostages when everything went wrong. A purist rounded a column unexpectedly, coming face to face with Frank. The alien's eyes widened in surprise. Frank reacted first, lunging forward to disable the purist before it could sound an alarm. But the alien was faster than expected. It dodged and fired its weapon. Frank cried out as the molecular disruptor grazed his side, tearing through flesh. He collapsed, clutching the wound as blood seeped between his fingers. Man down, Alan called through the comlink, proceeding with extraction. He dragged Frank behind a column as Krell created his diversion, smashing equipment at the far end of the chamber. Alarms blared as purists turned toward the disturbance. How bad? Alan asked, examining Frank's wound. Bad, Frank gasped. Can't feel my legs. Zexler appeared beside them, eyes widening at Frank's injury. The disruptor severed nerve pathways. He needs immediate medical attention. Alan's mind raced. The plan was falling apart. Frank needed evacuation, but leaving now would abandon the hostages. He made a quick decision. Zexler, get Frank out. I'll continue to the hostages. Alone? Zexler asked. That is suicide, human. Just go, Alan ordered. As Zexler helped Frank toward the maintenance tunnel, Alan turned his attention back to the hostages. 3 purists remained with them while others responded to Krell's diversion. Alan moved silently from column to column, getting closer. He could see Susan among the hostages now, her face tense but composed. The lead purist, a tall being with metallic scales, held a disruptor to a Makari delegate's head. Concord Security, the purist called out. Cease your attempt or hostages die. Krell had been captured. The diversion had failed. Alan watched as the Drax warrior was forced to his knees. Final warning, the purist leader shouted. Surrender or we execute 1 hostage every minute. Alan felt something change inside him. A cold clarity washed over his mind as his vision sharpened. His heartbeat slowed, then accelerated. Time seemed to stretch. He could see every detail of the chamber, hear every sound with perfect clarity. The Berserker state, What the aliens feared. What they'd been warning about. Alan didn't fight it. He embraced it. He emerged from behind the column, stunner raised. The first purist fell before it could turn fully. The second managed to fire, the shot grazing Alan's shoulder. He barely felt it. The purist leader swung his weapon toward Alan, away from the hostages. Exactly what Alan wanted. He fired twice more, dropping another guard. The leader's disruptor discharged. Pain blazed across Alan's chest, but he kept moving. Kept firing. His body should have stopped, but it didn't. Through a red haze, Alan saw the leader's face change, from confidence to confusion to fear as the human kept coming despite his wounds. Alan's stunner clicked empty. He dropped it and charged forward, tackling the alien to the ground. The last thing Alan heard before unconsciousness claimed him was the station security team breaching the main doors and the astonished whispers of the aliens watching a mortally wounded human who had refused to stop fighting. "Berserker," someone whispered. The legends were true. Alan woke up in the station's medical bay 3 days later. The room was filled with unfamiliar equipment, soft lights pulsing in patterns that seemed to follow his heartbeat. Susan sat beside his bed, her face showing relief when his eyes opened. "Welcome back," she said. "You had us worried." Alan tried to sit up and winced. His chest and shoulder were wrapped in a translucent material that glowed faintly blue. "Frank?" "Recovering," Susan replied. "The Makari medical team saved his life. They're quite impressed with both of you." "The hostages?" "All safe," Susan assured him. "You're the hero of Harmony Station, though not everyone is happy about how you did it." Before Alan could ask more questions, the door slid open. Ambassador Krill entered, followed by Trillax the Archivist and Gorn the Drac security chief. "Commander Baker," Krill said formally, "it is good to see you conscious. Your actions were unexpected, but effective," Gorn added, mandibles clicking in what Alan now recognized as respect. Alan tried to smile through the pain. "Just doing my job." "Your job," Trillax said softly. "Or your nature." The room fell silent. Alan met the archivist's ancient eyes. "Both, I suppose." Ambassador Krill stepped forward. "The Concord Council has convened an emergency session to discuss the human question. Your demonstration of the Berserker response has caused significant concern among many species." "Concern?" Alan asked. "I saved lives." "Yes," Krill agreed, "and you did so by exhibiting exactly the behavior that many fear most about humans. Security footage of the incident has spread throughout the station." Alan remembered the cold clarity, the pain that didn't matter, the absolute focus on protecting the hostages. "I did what was necessary." "The Drax representative has formally requested that humans be classified as a warrior species," Krill continued, "with restrictions on territory and technology access." Susan stood up quickly. "That's outrageous. One incident doesn't define an entire species." "No," Trillax agreed, "but it confirms what our histories already tell us." Alan frowned. "What histories?" The archivist moved closer to Alan's bed. "This was not the first contact between humans and galactic species, Commander Baker. Merely the first official one." In the council chamber later that day, Alan sat in a specially prepared medical chair. Frank was there too, his hover stretcher positioned beside Alan. Susan stood at the speakers, platform facing the assembled Concord delegates. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Many delegates kept glancing at the humans with expressions ranging from fear to fascination. The Drax representative, a senior warrior named Thrak, spoke first. "The evidence is clear. Humans are a warrior species who can enter killing states, at will. Such beings cannot be allowed unrestricted access to Concord technology." Murmurs of agreement followed. Alan watched as Susan prepared to respond, but Trillax moved to the center platform first. "Before we judge this species," the ancient archivist said, "we should examine the full context of our knowledge. The chamber quieted as Trillax activated the central display. Images appeared showing ancient cave paintings, stone tablets, and primitive scrolls from dozens of worlds. Our archives contain references to previous encounters with beings matching human description from thousands of years ago, Trillax explained. The Gyrex called them pale demons. The ancient Vryn named them the unstoppable ones. The Drax, ancestors recorded battles with warriors who grew stronger as they bled. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Alan exchanged a surprised look with Frank and Susan. "Are you saying aliens visited Earth in ancient times?" Frank asked. "Indeed," Trillax replied. "Scouts, explorers, and occasionally would-be conquerors. Few returned to tell their tales. Those who did spoke of a primitive but terrifyingly effective species." The Vryn delegate Zexeler moved to the platform. I witnessed Commander Baker's response firsthand. His mind pattern changed completely. Pain signals were blocked. Aggression centers activated beyond normal parameters. Even after sustaining injuries that would incapacitate any rational being, he continued fighting. Alan remembered little of those moments. Only the absolute certainty that he had to protect the hostages, no matter the cost. "This is why humans must be contained," Thrak insisted. "Imagine an army of such beings, immune to pain, fighting beyond biological limits. No species could stand against them." Susan finally took the platform. Her voice was calm but firm as she addressed the council. "You fear what you don't understand," she began. "Yes, humans can enter this berserker state in extreme circumstances. It's a biological response developed over millions of years as prey animals who became predators. But it's not who we are." She gestured to Alan and Frank. "The same humans who fought so ferociously to save your delegates then worked to save the wounded purists. Our medical team treated enemies and allies alike." Susan activated her own display, showing human medical personnel attending to injured purists after the attack. "Humans can fight beyond normal limits," Susan acknowledged. "But we can also love, create, and heal beyond normal limits. Our capacity for violence is matched by our capacity for compassion." The chamber was silent now, all attention focused on Susan. "If you judge us only by our capacity for violence, you miss the full measure of humanity," she continued. "We are scientists, artists, explorers, and yes, warriors when we need to be. We don't want to conquer the galaxy. We want to join it, learn from it, and contribute to it." Trillax nodded slowly. "The human speaks truth. Our archives show that, in every recorded encounter, humans fought only when threatened. They never initiated conflict." The debate continued for hours. Alan watched as various species argued about the human question. Some, like the Drax, wanted strict controls on human expansion. Others, particularly the scientifically minded Makari, were fascinated by human biology and psychology. The council remained divided. No consensus was reached by the day's end. As the session adjourned, Ambassador Krill approached the human delegation. "This discussion will continue tomorrow," Krill said. "Many species remain fearful of what might happen if humanity ever unified and turned its berserker nature outward." "What do you think, Ambassador?" Alan asked. Krill's iridescent skin pulsed, with gentle colors. "I think fear is a poor basis for policy, but fear is powerful, especially fear of the unknown." "We're not unknown anymore," Frank pointed out. "They've seen what humans can do." "Yes," Krill agreed. "Both the violence and the healing. That is the paradox your species presents to us." As they left the chamber, Alan noticed the other delegates, watching them with new expressions, still cautious but with something like respect mixed with the fear. "What happens now?" he asked Susan quietly. "We keep talking," she replied. "We show them that humans are more than our capacity for violence." Alan nodded, but couldn't help wondering if the Concord would ever truly accept a species that could, when pushed to extremes, fight beyond the limits of biological reason. A species that other beings across the galaxy had learned to fear as berserkers. The council debate entered its second day with no resolution in sight. Alan sat with Frank and Susan, listening as species after species expressed concerns about humanity's place in the conquered. Their decision may take weeks, Susan whispered. The conquered rarely makes hasty judgments. Before Alan could respond, emergency alarms blared throughout the chamber. Ambassador Krill rushed to the central platform, skin flashing with urgent patterns. Purist warship detected entering the system, Krill announced. Long-range scans confirm it is heavily armed and on direct approach to Harmony Station. The chamber erupted in panic. Delegates rushed to communication devices, calling their homeworlds for guidance. Gorn stepped forward, mandibles tight with tension. Station defenses are inadequate against a military vessel of that class. We must evacuate. Evacuation will take hours, Krill countered. We have minutes at most. Alan stood. Has Earth been notified? Krill nodded. All member worlds and observer planets have been alerted. Your defense fleet has responded and is en route, but they are still 30 minutes from arrival. What about Concord military vessels? Frank asked from his hover stretcher. The nearest patrol ship is 1 hour away, Gorn replied grimly. The station shook as distant weapons fire connected with the outer shields. Status displays flashed warnings as power fluctuated. They're targeting our shield generators, Gorn explained. Once those fail, they'll disable life support and communications. Why? Not just destroy the station? Susan asked. Trillax answered. They want to prevent human inclusion in the conquered, not start a war with all member species. They likely plan to destroy all evidence of the negotiations and claim the humans rejected membership. The station rocked, again harder this time. Emergency lights activated as main power failed in several sections. We need options, Alan said. What ships do we have available? 3 diplomatic vessels not designed for combat, Krill replied. And your Earth defensive fleet approaching. 5 ships, light armaments. Alan thought quickly. Get me in contact with the Earth fleet. Minutes later, Alan spoke with Captain Patricia Miller of the Earth vessel Intrepid. Her face on the communication screen was resolute. We're coming in hot, Commander, Miller reported. 5 ships against 1 warship isn't great odds, but we'll buy you time to evacuate. No evacuation, Alan replied. We need a different strategy. The purists want to prevent human inclusion in the conquered. Let's show the conquered exactly why. Humans should be included. Alan outlined his plan quickly. Miller's eyes widened, then narrowed with determination. Understood, Commander. It's risky, but it might work. Intrepid out. Alan turned to find the Council watching him. Your Earth ships cannot defeat a purist warship, Thrak stated flatly. Their technology is inferior. We don't need to defeat them, Alan replied. We just need to distract them. Susan looked at him sharply. What are you planning? Something very human, Alan said. The station's observation deck provided a clear view as the Earth defense fleet arrived. 5 sleek ships, small compared to the massive purist warship that loomed near the station. The council members and delegation representatives gathered, watching in tense silence as the human ships took formation. The purist vessel fired. Energy, weapons slicing through space. The Earth ships scattered, performing evasive maneuvers that seemed reckless, almost suicidal. What are they doing? Zexler asked, purple skin pale with tension. Fighting like humans, Alan replied. The Earth ships darted and weaved, drawing fire away from the station. They seemed to be deliberately placing themselves in danger, executing maneuvers that caused the aliens to gasp. These tactics defy standard combat protocols, Gorn observed. They're sacrificing defense for offensive positioning. Precisely, Alan said. Human ships don't retreat when damaged. They become more dangerous. The Intrepid took a direct hit to its starboard section. Atmosphere vented into space before emergency systems sealed the breach. By all logic, the ship should have withdrawn to safety. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the purist vessel. What is happening? Krill demanded. The ship is critically damaged. Captain Miller is making a choice, Alan explained. A very human choice. The communication system crackled to life. Captain Miller's face appeared, her bridge filled with smoke. Harmony Station, this is Intrepid. Our main engines are failing and weapons are offline. Evacuation is not possible. Retreat, Captain, Krill urged. Your ship cannot. We're not retreating, Miller interrupted. Intrepid is still an effective weapon. Commander Baker, remind the Conquered. When humans go berserk, even gods can't save you. The observation deck fell silent as understanding dawned on the aliens' faces. The damaged Intrepid was accelerating directly toward the Purist vessel's command center, turning the ship itself into a weapon. She can't mean to, Zexler whispered. She does, Alan confirmed. This is humanity at its most desperate and most magnificent. The Purist ship attempted evasive actions, but the Intrepid matched every move, its remaining engines burning beyond safety limits. The other Earth ships continued their attack, preventing the Purist vessel from bringing its main weapons to bear. They're clearing a path, Susan realized, sacrificing themselves if necessary. The Intrepid collided with the Purist warship at tremendous speed, striking precisely at the command center. The explosion bloomed silently in space, beautiful and terrible. Secondary explosions rippled across the larger vessel as critical systems failed. The Purist warship, disabled but not destroyed, drifted helplessly. The remaining Earth ships moved in, securing the vessel and rescuing survivors, both their own people and Purist crew. Hours later, the Conquered Council reconvened in emergency session. The mood had changed completely. Alan, Susan, and Frank stood at the center, no longer as petitioners but as honored allies. The Conquered Council has reached unanimous agreement, Ambassador Krill announced, voice solemn. Humanity will be welcomed as full members of the galactic community, with all rights and responsibilities therein. Murmurs of approval filled the chamber. Even Thrak, the Drax representative who had argued most strongly against humans, inclined his head in respect. The courage demonstrated by the Earth fleet, particularly the crew of the Intrepid, exemplifies qualities the Conquered values. Krill continued. Sacrifice for others, protection of peace, and yes, the willingness to fight without retreat when principles are at stake. Trillax stepped forward. Our archives will record this day as the true beginning of humanity's galactic journey. Alan thought of Captain Miller and her crew. Some had survived in escape pods, but many had remained aboard until the end. Their sacrifice had changed everything. We accept membership, he said simply. And we promise to use our unique nature to protect the Conquered, not threaten it. Later, as they prepared for the formal signing ceremony, Zexler approached Alan, privately. The Vrin's usual fear seemed gone, replaced by cautious respect. I did not understand before, Zexler said quietly. When we warned the Purists that when humans go berserk, even gods can't save you, we meant it as a warning against your kind. And now, Alan asked. Zexler's skin rippled with new colors. Now I see it differently. Sometimes that's exactly what the universe needs. The Vrin hesitated. Would you teach me about human courage, Commander Baker? I find I want to understand it better. Alan smiled and extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. After only a moment's hesitation, Zexler took it. In that simple gesture, the future of human-alien relations was born, not despite humanity's berserker nature, but because of it. The very thing that had made the galaxy fear humans would now help protect it. As Susan had said, humanity's capacity for violence was matched only by its capacity for compassion. They were warriors when needed, healers when possible, and now, finally, they were equals among the stars.